Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Gnomon live stream. My name is Adam Hartel, and I'll be your host today. And we were just looking at some fantastic artwork by Gnomon students. Gnomon is a 3D art school located in Hollywood, California, and we specialize in training artists for careers in games, animation, and visual effects. And today's stream is going to be all about, speaking with one of our instructors at Gnomon. Every instructor at Gnomon is a actively working industry professional. So when they come into the classroom, they are literally coming from their day job in a studio and teaching you the exact same things that they use on a daily basis for the projects that they work on. And that's really the purpose of this series of streams that we've been doing. Today, we are really excited to be speaking with Christophe Desse, who is lead technical artist at Naughty Dog. And I'm sure everybody's familiar with Naughty Dog and some of the fantastic work that they're producing over there. So we're going to hear from Christophe about, his artistic journey, how he got into what he's doing today, and what it's like to be in the classroom with him at Gnomon. Before we get started into that, I just wanted to mention that if you are in need of closed captioning, that's going to be available on our Facebook page. If you go and watch the Facebook live video that's running right now there on the Gnomon page of Facebook, you'll be able to get closed captioning if you're in need of that. And today's stream is also going to be available as video on demand. Usually just a couple of minutes after the stream finishes, you can find that on the Gnomon YouTube channel. If you want to go back and review anything you've seen today, share it with a friend. And that same YouTube channel has well over 100 different events, interviews, informational sessions that we've done over the years that really is available as a free educational resource to you. So with that said, I would like to introduce our guest today, and I kind of already have. So I'd like to bring Christophe up on the screen. Hello, Christophe. Welcome.
Hi, Adam. Thank you for having me. Hi, guys.
Yes, pleasure to have you here. Thank you for taking some time to join us today.
Thank you for having me. It's funny you mentioned closed caption. With my accent, might be needed to have closed caption somewhere sometime.
Sure. I think you're doing fine. These streams are a little bit, less formal in terms of, reading out the pedigree and all of that stuff of our guests, because really we want to hear it from you. So sort of the first question I wanted to send your way, and all the folks watching in the chat on each of the platforms we're streaming on today, you guys can also type your questions in for Christophe as well. And in about the second half of this conversation, we'll start getting into the questions that are coming from the chat. But you're a lead technical artist at Naughty Dog. You've worked on some amazing projects. But could you tell us first a little bit about your journey and how you found your way into doing what you're doing today?
Well, I guess my journey is a bit different than what people are going through nowadays. I started with 3D back in mid to late 91 with a whole piece of software called 3D Studio 2, not 3D Max, but 3D Studio. And at the time, I was, 18. I was a firefighter. I went to the army for 2 years, the French army. And then I always dab in 3D. Remember at the time, there was no internet, no school. I did obviously access the software in a way that I should not mention today. And it was a very different time. There was no information anywhere to learn. So I did learn it on my own. I'm completely autodidact. As a matter of fact, I don't even have a degree in any type of school. Then back in 1998, I got my first shot. I was living in Berlin, Germany, and I got my first shot as an internship. I was working in the gastronomy at the time. And it was a very hard time because I was working day and night, sleeping maybe like 3-4 hours. And I got my break in 2000 in Berlin. Started to work in a big company doing advertising, music video, which is very funny because all the people I did work with at the time, most of them are in the States or in New Zealand working at all that little group. Everybody is spread across the world. And I think it's 2003, I moved to Singapore. I became the co-owner of a studio in Singapore. I did stay there for like 10 months. Then I went back to Germany, and in 2004, I got an offer to work on a movie in Texas at a company called DNA Production. We were working on a movie called The Ants Bully. It's a movie produced by Tom Hanks, if I recall correctly. And since 2006, which is now 15 years, I'm working at Naughty Dog, where we work on games like So I have a very autodidact way of doing 3D. I did not learn it at all. That's why I enjoy
Yeah.
teaching actually, because I want to give people the opportunity to learn in a way that I did not have at the time.
Yeah, and I think that you're also bringing up a great point about, especially digital production in the entertainment industry is really interesting because it grows so quickly and changes so fast with technology, with production techniques. But, it hasn't been around for that long if you count the years. So
No.
a lot of our instructors at Gnomon, such as yourself, are at a stage in their careers with the longevity that they have where you were around as a lot of the stuff that we're doing today was still being figured out and being pioneered. So I think it's a really cool perspective to be able to have that in the classroom.
Yes, it's very interesting to think. Most of my students come from texturing one when they learn UV the proper way, the old school way, and it's funny
Mm-hmm.
to share the dream, because I'm like, well, you spent 3 days doing UV. Let me show you to do it in like 30 minutes. Same with texturing, because I teach texturing with certain splatter. It's insane to see the difference, the paradigm shift that did happen over the last 6 years. In the old days, texturing would take like a gun would take 3 days in Photoshop, pen stacking. Now I texture a gun in 30 minutes if I have to. It's very interesting. It's sometimes I'm sad to be a bit older, but sometimes I'm happy because I saw the industry evolve.
Yes. Well, and I think we're at a time where there is an art history for digital production for the entertainment industry, and I think it's really important. Even though we might not use some of the earlier techniques, it's important to know what they were to an extent because you can see why we've developed what we have now, and I think it better informs what we do.
Yeah,
Uh,
I totally agree. I think it's important to know the old rule to be able to break them now.
mhm, mhm.
It's very important. So.
Now, before we kind of look at some of your work and some of what you do, technical artist, lead technical artist, some might be familiar with what that position actually is in the pipeline. But I find also that a lot of artists I speak with that are still, sort of aspiring to work in games and work in studios, the title technical artist for them feels a little contradictory. Like, how can you have technical and artist in the same title? So can you talk to us a little bit about what that role is?
Yeah, it's very interesting because it depends from studio to studio. Already, title
Hmm.
don't mean much. Title are just a label, right? Depending on the studio, technical artist might be somebody that is more versed into programming or more versed into art. So for us at Naughty Dog, we have different type of technical artists. We have different department for technical artists. We have people that create tools, and it's a completely different department. And then we have my department where we are basically 3D generalists. I have one tool guy, somebody that is a programmer. But for me, as a lead technical artist, I would define myself as a 3D generalist. As a matter of fact, I have never ever in my life, and I refuse to do it to this day, written any line of code. It's not what interests me. It's not what makes me excited. So what makes me a lead technical artist is because I am well versed into every aspect of the pipeline as a 3D generalist. I
Hmm.
create rigid body simulation, real-time rigid body, class simulation, destruction, and all that stuff. So it is a very wide encompassing area of expertise. I started at Naughty Dog as an environment artist on Uncharted 1, then
Hmm.
Uncharted 2, still an environment artist, then The Last of Us as a technical artist on Uncharted 3 technical artist. I become a lead on The Lost Legacy actually. And nowadays, if you ask me about my day-to-day job, I do very little amount of art or production. I do mostly management. I have a team of roughly 10 people right now, and I need to make sure that every task that come in, I need to figure, are we going to do it? What are the issue that we're going to encounter? Then I converge with the people on my team and we see if the idea is good, and then we make it happen, and we have to manage the resource to make sure everybody don't have too much stuff on their plate, right? Or we have
Yeah.
time to do it.
And then, you talked about technical artists being different from studio to studio. What would be some examples of some of the in-game things that people are going to see that a technical artist has had a hand in?
Oh, that's fairly simple. For my department, as an example, any game you're going to play from Naughty Dog, we take care of every big destruction event that you see. Interesting wise, we don't take care of any particle. That's a different department. But
Okay.
every time you see a big set piece, a collapse of a castle, a car
Hmm.
in the corner of the screen, or just shooting the windows on T2, right? On the Last of Us 2, when you shoot those windows, they look there like they're real time, but actually it's just a hack. And that's what we do. We take care of
Yeah.
everything that is not a character or not a props like a gun. That's a new department that
Hmm.
takes care of that. As soon as it moves, it comes through my department. Basically,
Yeah.
people on my team are rigger. They need to rig a little bit. Not like a character TD, but they need to understand the concept of rigging. They are
Hmm.
physics artists. They need to understand the pipeline using the Havoc proprietary tools. They need to understand Maya, obviously. They need to know class simulation. Now we expand our skill set toward Houdini. The industry is evolving, which is also something very interesting because we can talk about more in depth when we come about the class stuff. But remind me to talk
Hmm.
about how the industry evolves.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, and you talked about like destruction in some of the Uncharted games, and I mean that's one of the things I love about those games is how you never really break from immersion. When it goes to animatic sequences, there's not like, okay, now I'm out of the game and I'm watching an animation. And especially those sequences, like I forget which game it was on, but you're leaving this mansion that is literally crumbling around you as you're leaving, and it's there's so much complexity, but you feel like you're right inside a film.
If
So
I
is that some of the kind of destruction you're talking about?
Yes, correct. The mentioning
Very
of
awesome.
Uncharted 2
Hmm.
and the collapse of the castle is done in Maya, actually. It's all
Yeah,
visual simulation.
that's amazing. That's really cool. So, and then before we jump onto ArtStation, I think the last question I had about the role of technical artist is, I think a lot of people are more aware of like character centric jobs in the industry. And they'll either be interested in being a character designer, which is a whole different thing, or they find their way into, oh, I can be a character artist and making characters for games. But that's only a slice of the pipeline.
This
There's a
is
lot
correct.
of other, and I think most of the jobs that are available in studios for artists are in other areas.
This is
So
correct.
could you talk to us a little bit about those jobs and maybe what kind of people they appeal to?
Yeah, this is quite interesting actually because every class when we start, I ask my student, where do you see yourself? And most of the people see themselves as a character artist because it's an artistic ego speaking. I want to be a character artist. I want to show stuff, which I totally understand. But if we
Hmm.
look at the reality of think in any studio, you have a small character team that do character, and you have a huge environment artist team. It's already stopped there, right? The skill to be an environment artist are relatively the same as to be a character artist nowadays. We use the same tool, we use the same pipeline, but there's more opportunity because at the end of the day, people go to school to get a job, right? To be an artist, but also to get a job. And you have to look at how do I get to the point where I can get a job. And they everybody want to be a character artist. I always make it fun about like it's like being an actor in Hollywood. Everybody wants to be an actor, but everybody
Hmm.
ends up being a waiter, right? There's maybe 10 jobs and 100 people that wants a job. But on the environment side, just to give you an idea, without going too much in detail, we have
Hmm.
roughly 12, 12 character artists, I think at Naughty Dog, something like that. And I
Hmm.
think the environment team is already at 60 people. So you see
Wow.
the ratio
Yeah.
already. And we are still hiring, by the way. If people want to send their portfolio, they are very welcome to do so.
Hmm.
We hire, it's funny because I told for Gnomon now, and we hire so many Gnomon students at the end. It's actually very interesting. But the nature of the fact that I'm a teacher there, I have, example on my team, I have two students that went through my class.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
did they get the job because they went through my class? No. Did they get the job because maybe they did fudge the interview? Yes. But I knew them. I knew what they can do. And
Hmm.
it's a very interesting aspect of studying at Gnomon because I know from other teachers they do exactly the same, right? It's what
Yeah,
I tell my
absolutely.
students all the time. Your teacher remember you, your teacher remember you, and it go both ways. It can be good, it can be bad.
Yeah, and I'm glad you brought that up because I talk about that all the time with prospective students at Gnomon, students who are in community colleges or high schools or adults who are looking to break into that career. And a lot of people don't have a context for that because that's not usually the way that it works at school. You're not usually in the classroom with someone that's actually doing the job at the place that you want to work at. So this idea of a 4-year degree program being like a 4-year job interview is an entirely new concept. And it's the reason why most of our students actually don't go after internships
No,
with
they
studios,
don't have
because you're
to.
already meeting the studio in the classroom.
They don't have to actually. When we hire them straight up to be associate. I think it's very called correctly because they are really
Mm,
a skill. It's not like okay. So I get a bunch of resume right a day,
hmm
depending on when we hire. Every time there's a Gnomon student in there, I know from the get go that that person have the basic that I need. They know to rig, they know to model, they know to texture. They're probably better in some area than other, but I know they understand all those concepts. So
hmm
there's another aspect you mentioned that is very interesting. It's like you say every teacher is walking through the day, and it's what I tell my students. They are always surprised. I don't give them a curriculum. I never give a curriculum. I refuse to give a curriculum. I refuse to be stuck with something that I did right a year ago. The industry is
Mm,
moving so fast. What I'm teaching this term is not the same as what I was teaching last term. Why? Because in between, I learn new stuff. There's new way of doing stuff. There's new tools, and I like to keep also very organic. Like I react to my student need. If I see that
hmm
they are very good very quickly, I'm going to push them even further, and we're going to look at more tools, more stuff. If I see they need to have more a slower approach, then I'm going to adjust. That's why I don't have a curriculum. Another joke I like to make to my students, it's not really a joke, it's actually a statement. I'm like, if you go
hmm
to, I'm not going to name a school because I did teach in a lot of schools and I saw it. If I am working at Naughty Dog today and I teach you what I do today. If I leave Naughty Dog and I keep teaching you, after 6 months, I'm still a good teacher. I still know what Naughty Dog do. A year, it starts to be borderline. 2, 3 years later, I tell you, oh, at Naughty Dog, we used to do it this way. And it's going to be utterly bullshit because we change our pipeline every 6 months. We are constantly evolving.
Yeah.
So I think it's a good point to bring that people are in the classroom with people that are teaching what they do every day.
And when you get portfolios in, can you see the difference between someone who's learned an older technique and someone who's learning something current?
Yes, there's a joke. There's a school I'm not going to mention. Every student have a shield. Every student have a shield in their portfolio, and they must be going through the same teacher because the shield have X amount of vert around. Let's say the
hmm
shield is 128 vert for the big shield, and every little dimple on the shield, which is like a rivet, every rivet has
hmm
120 side cylinder, and I'm like, that don't make any sense. So that's an insider joke. So.
Yeah.
Generally, when we see Gnomon student portfolio, there is a constant, and the constant is actually the quality and the attention to detail. You were playing the video at the beginning. I was so happy to see the work from some of my students they did in the classroom, but also to
hmm
see the evolution, like students that they finished Gnomon 2 years after coming to my classroom, and I see where they are now, and it's very exciting. I think it's very interesting.
Oh, that's awesome. All right. Well, we could easily slip into talking a lot more about the classroom, but before we do that, I'd love for you to be able to share some of your own work,
Sure.
so students can, the folks watching, can see the kind of stuff that you're doing. So you should be able to see your screen share up now on the stream.
Do people see only this screen, right?
Yes. Yeah, we
Perfect.
had a little of the streamception there for a second ago, but now the Hall of Mirrors is gone.
So, what I would like to mention about my personal work, one, I'm a very eclectic 3D artist. I do a lot of different stuff. Obviously, I like cars and motorcycle. The interesting stuff is I do a lot of personal work, even when we are in high production, meaning sometimes we crunch a little bit. 3D for me is it's more than a hobby. It's more than a passion. It's kind of obsession, if you want. I That's the only stuff I do. I don't watch soccer. I don't watch American football. I don't watch sport. I spend time with my family. But when I have my free time, my me time is not playing video games, it's doing 3D. So let me know if there's any piece you want to talk about more in detail, but we could start with this one as an example, right? So I like to explore multiple software. Example, right now, this is rendered in V-Ray doing cell shader. It's a pet peeve of mine is to achieve the perfect cell shader. And I'm still not there, but I'm coming closer and closer.
hmm
Also, what I teach in my classroom is Redshift. The reason why I teach Redshift is because most of the teachers at Gnomon are going to teach you V-Ray because V-Ray is industry standard and it's a very good render engine. I
hmm
like Redshift because it's on the GPU and it's very fast. And it's also an upcoming software, meaning I'm like, I give people the choice in the classroom. You want to use V-Ray, you can, but let's look at Redshift because it's going to be a bit faster. Not to knock V-Ray, V-Ray could be slower, but have more feature and it's more refined render engine when Redshift is very much faster. So I like to do silly character stuff. I go all over the place with my art.
Oh yeah, I was looking at this guy earlier. This is really cool. And I love the fact that you've set it up in an environment that's like, this is a model that you sculpted and hand painted.
Yeah, there's another comment I give to myself all the time. It's find your own style.
Mm-hmm.
If you look at my 3D art, a lot of time you will see something consistent, which is weird camera angle, exaggerated camera angle, saturated color. Everything looked like a toy, heavy depth of field. And it's something I did since my Lightwave days. I used Lightwave back in the day, and I was well known on forum. People were able to say, "Oh, Christophe did that," just because of the specific look of what I was doing. So as I said, I like cars, and I don't have time for the big giant project because I need to get I need to get them out of my system. I need to do that. And because my work is very demanding at the studio, I don't have time for those 3-month projects. A project for me takes generally, I would say, a week to 2 weeks, and it needs to be done, or I just forget about it. I just put it on the side. The same stuff for one picture for one project that end up on ArtStation in my portfolio. There are probably 15 projects that never see the light of the day. It's also something I like to talk with my student about. It's like, if you look at that was supposed to be a big battle set and everything. I always start with a big idea in my mind, and as I go, I have to reduce and reduce and reduce because I don't have time.
Which is actually really great for the creative process, to have that big idea and then work with the limitation of time.
Yes, I also like to recycle stuff. You see that character here started as a cel shader V-Ray video, and I did actually end up doing new render. Everybody started to do what I like to call the new lens flare trend, which is clay render. And I was like, all right, everybody's doing clay render. I'm going to do my own clay render too. And those are done in Redshift. Those are not real clay because I cannot sculpt. I don't draw, I don't sculpt. I'm a hack. I just do 3D. That's what I do.
Well, I think you mentioned something earlier that has to do with a question that comes up a lot. At least I hear it a lot. You talked about finding your own style. And it feels like sometimes people are so concerned about finding their style that it's almost like just keep making your art. And what advice would you give to someone that says, how do I find my style?
Don't find it. Your style is there in what you do. I always encourage my students when they build something based on a concept art. I'm like, it's good, do it because you want to show that you can follow concept art, and that's important to get a job, right? But make it your own. Make it your own. And also, we talk about style and evolution. I will give you an example. This is something I did back in 2000. This is the art I was doing back in 2000 in Lightwave. Let's see if I can make that bigger. Actually, it's not really. Let's see if I can go back here. I'll close this one. And this is what did open the door for me to move to America. It's stupid, but it's actually what did open the door. People saw the art and were like, oh, that will fit in the style of our movie. And it did happen. It's not like I did not set up a day and be like, I'm going to find my own style. My own style is defined by my cultural background, right? I grew up in France with a lot of comic, like French graphic novel, right?
Yeah.
And it did probably impreg my vision of what I want to achieve, right? There's also another aspect. Remember, I did not go to school. I did not study art, meaning my artistic ability when it comes to the human body might be a little bit limited. And I'm going to hide behind the fact that it is stylized. You see, those Stormtroopers, the proportion are very stylized. The reason why is because I did not have time to take a book and take ZBrush and start to sculpt something that is very human-like. So that's why I hide behind the stylization. And it's helped me to develop my own style.
Yeah.
Let's see if I have more stuff worth sharing. This is some very old stuff. That was back in 10 years ago in Iray, not Iray. It was Metal Ray in Maya and Mudbox.
Okay, yeah. Yep.
And it's funny because we talk about the evolution, right? You can see the evolution of the tools. That was Metal Ray and it was Mudbox. And this one is Substance Painter and Redshift. And the render looks very different.
Yeah.
It's still,
Yep.
I did completely rebuild it, and it took me maybe a week to finish that piece at most. And when I say a week, it's a week like 5 times 3 hours in the evening at most.
Now,
So,
the other thing I noticed is because I've been on your ArtStation before, and you talk about the types of things you make as a technical artist, and
mhm.
that might be leaning away from character. But then I go to your ArtStation and I see a technical artist creating a lot of really cool character centric and storytelling images, and I think. But here's the question behind what I'm observing is, I hear a lot of anxiety from people about, well, if I choose to do this as my job, then it means I'll never get to do these things.
That's fine.
But we're talking about the difference between your job and the art you make for yourself too.
My job is not my life.
Right.
So I go at work. People need to understand something. It's like people are like, oh, I'm going to be a character artist and I'm going to do amazing character. No, you're going to be a character artist and you're going to make the character that the art director wants you to do. If the art director wants a freckle on the tip of the nose and you don't want to, you're still going to do it because that's a requirement. I think I don't see myself as an artist at work. I'm a craftsman. Let me try to explain that. If I'm an artist and I'm building a piece of furniture for myself, it's going to look what I have in my mind. If I'm a craftsman, I'm going to build a piece of furniture for you, and I'm going to have to build it to your dimension and to your spec, and it need to do exactly what you want it to do.
Yes.
I'm not knocking down people. People need to realize it's a job. It is a job. It is not a big adventure, and it's not like going to Disneyland and you do what you want every day. Trust me, there's days where my job sucks, even if because I work at Naughty Dog, my job still sucks sometimes. And sometimes my job is very rewarding and it's fun. But most of the time, I do what people want me to do because that's what I'm paid for. I'm not an art director. I'm not a creative director. And I can put a lot of myself in what I do because of the studio I work at. But in some studio, if they say it's blue, you're not going to come and say, can we make it dark blue? They're going to be, no, it's light blue, and you make it light blue. And the point is that you go home and you keep working on your stuff.
Yes.
The best advice I give my students, like when you get your first job, is work hard. And when you're done, go home and work even harder. So, meaning if you like to do character and you end up being an environment artist, what stop you to do character? Right? Theoretically, you go in that job because you enjoy what you do. I am a little bit extreme in my vision in what I do because, as I said, I'm obsessed with getting stuff out. If I don't get stuff out, I get cranky. I can't get stuff out. It's just the way it
I
is.
completely understand what you're saying, and my wife can confirm that. If I don't get my art out, I can be really not an easy person to live with.
And here we can see also some of, when I said a lot of stuff happened that never get finished, that's the block, right? It's where I post some of the stuff, some old stuff. You can also see the evolution of some project, the way stuff look.
I love some of that. If you go back to the grid, there was some really beautiful high contrast stylized renders, like some cel shaded renders in black and white.
Which one? This one?
Scroll down a little bit more. Oh, it might be arranged slightly. If you scroll back up a little bit, it almost looked like a bunch of drawings on a piece of paper. Yeah.
I told you I'm a hack. I cannot draw, and those are basically rendered in ZBrush.
Yes.
Like a photo with paperwork on top, and it's silly. It's not something I would put in my portfolio and apply as an artist, But it's good to display that in a pinch I can do stuff, right?
Absolutely.
I'm multifaceted as a 3D artist. It's what I mean being one, a generalist, and two, being technical. Is that very technical? No, but some people will tell you, oh, but you need to script and you need a special tool. And the way I look at it is I use whatever tool I have at my disposition. So.
And it looks like, because I recognize some of these, so especially some of the stylized ones looking a little bit like some ZBrush renders, but it also looks like you are taking time to customize some of those cel-shaded renders. Yeah.
Definitively, that's the only way to do it, right? ZBrush is always the base. It's the same with my, I like to show my students basically 3D versus photography, right? I do photography a lot. I like to photograph my vehicle. That's my motorcycle. I don't have it anymore, but and no photo will leave my hard drive if it's not taken through Lightroom. I just do a bit of Lightroom, and it's the same with my render. Every render go through post-processing. The way I look at a render, it's the same as if I did have a digital camera. I don't do one render. I do like 10, 15 from different angles,
Mm-hmm.
and then I kill the one I don't like. That's a difference of mindset. Like I want to get stuff out, and I cannot commit to one angle, and then the render
Yeah.
takes 4 or 5 hours. I prefer to have 20 angle and my render take 5 minutes each, and then I can kill the one I don't like. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the way I like to do stuff. So,
It's
but as
really
you can
cool.
see, there's a lot of stuff going on my outstation. Oh my god! I just realized I have really a lot of stuff going on. It's crazy.
It's awesome though. And I think, it's sometimes if you look at someone who is spending a lot of time, working in a game studio, film studio, those kind of things, you go to their art station and it's not very heavily populated because they're so busy doing what they're doing. And I'm sure that you're quite busy, but it's obvious that you're following your own advice. You're spending a lot of time
Yes,
working on your art outside of work.
I've spent too much time. If you listen to my wife, but that's what I like to tell my students. It's like, okay, they get their job and party lifestyle, right? Finally, I have a job and I meet people at
Mhm.
work and I have a party, which is great. You need to live a little bit, but then they only do work and nothing outside of work. And the problem is that I am a technical artist at Naughty Dog. Great, because I know the pipeline. And but take me and put me in another studio. How much time do you think it's going to take me to learn the pipeline? So,
Mhm.
and some people only know the pipeline from where they work. They don't do Maya, they don't do more stuff, they don't try new tools, and they end up being just good as what they do in one spot. And you put them in another company, and they are not what you expect. So I
Mhm.
think it's important to remember that. So,
Yeah. Now we've got some questions queuing up in the chat, but before we
sure.
get to those, let's take a few minutes and talk about in the classroom with you at Gnomon. If someone comes and takes a class, I'm not sure if you teach one class or multiple classes, but if they're in the
So
classroom with you, what is that going to be like?
what's going to be like? It's going to be maybe a little bit different because I'm a very direct person. The first stuff I tell my student is one, I don't like grade. I really tell them from the beginning, I'm going to grade them. I'm going to grade them fairly because I need to do that out of respect for other students that were before them or after them.
Mm-hmm.
That's very important. But I want them to realize that grade don't mean shit in the real world. Nobody is going to ask you what were your grade in an interview. What is important is your portfolio. I mean, both go hand in hand, right? If you have a good portfolio, you probably did a good grade at school.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But it's the same, like people are obsessed with best of term, and I'm like, no, just enjoy what you are doing right now. If you make a good piece and you enjoy it,
Yeah.
you probably have a good shot at best of term, but don't do it for best of term. Because people ask me, what is going to be the best image to get best of term with the best subject? I'm like, I have no idea who decide best of term anyway. You need to have a striking image. So that's one. Twice after that, I tell my student, I hope you're not offended by my cursing because I curse a lot. So when we establish that, we're good. Three, I apologize for butchering their name. I have students from all over the world, and sometimes I cannot pronounce the name, and we establish that very quickly, and it's fine. And after that, we talk about something that for me is very important. I ask my students, what do they want? Do they want me to be brutally honest with them, or do
Mm.
they want me to be nice to them? And in 95% of the case, students are like, no, 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 we want you to be brutally honest, which is the right answer because they pay for the education, right?
Mm-hmm.
Then the next stuff I do in the first class is I give them my email address because I believe that as a teacher, I should be available for my students. Remember, I don't teach for, it's not out of a need for money. I'm a technical lead artist at Naughty Dog. I'm fine.
Mm-hmm.
I really enjoy the challenge and I enjoy giving it back. I am where I am today because people took a chance on me, because people saw something and they did put me on the right path, right? And I like to be able to challenge my student. I like when my students challenge me. I don't know everything. I do not know everything. The promise I make to them is next week I will come with an answer. I don't know, but let me find out. So
Mm-hmm.
by week 5, I give them my cell phone number because I'm like, now that we move toward finals, you guys can call at any time of the day. I might not have time, but I will tell you later, right, or I can help you. So that's one of the very straightforward approach in my classroom. I also tell them that because I don't believe in grade, I don't believe in midterm, I believe in final project. I want them to have a final project. If they don't have a portfolio piece to put on the art station, then I fail. Not they fail, it's I fail.
Mm.
my target for them is to have a portfolio piece that they are proud of at the end of the class. It's very important because it shows me that they do it because they love it, not because they have to do it or because there's a grade at the end.
And then that's, I think it's awesome that you make yourself so available to your students. And I love how you give them the option. Do you want me to be brutally honest? Do you want me to be nice?
Well,
And I love it when I can get someone to be brutally honest with me. If I show them my artwork, don't be my friend. Give me real perspective.
I am not mean to them, right? Remember, I'm not
sure.
mean.
Oh, sure.
I understand we all start somewhere. But what I do is I review the homework together with all the class. And they agree to that at the beginning of the class. The reason for that is I want people to learn of the mistake of each other. One of the first stuff I tell them is look at the people around you in the classroom. They are going to be the people that either open you the door to a job or close the door to a job. We started on Uncharted 4. I remember because I was the first one to hire a Gnomon student. And the first Gnomon student I did hire was a good catch. And we did ask him, was like, dude, do you know other people? Then he did recommend Kirsten, which was another student, and she commented and she recommended another one. And then before we knew it, it's like pigeon, you feed them and they're everywhere. We got a lot of Gnomon students. It was good. But sometimes we asked them, what about this guy? And they were like, he have good art, but he was not a nice person to be around. And that's what I established very early in the classroom is people need to learn art of each other and help each other. Because if you have the best art shots, sometimes I see students that are amazing. They are even better than me sometimes because they have a career before. But then I look at the attitude, I'm like, no, you have an ego and it's not going to work out. So I review the homework with the student together for them to see the mistake from other students and to learn about that. Or see what other students do well and be like, oh, that makes sense, right? It's a very interesting approach. I also believe that learning is a non-linear path. It's a non-linear process. I don't go in the classroom like other schools will do, like A, B, C, D. No. I do A, D, G, and maybe Z. And then I look at the face of the student and I see that they are a little bit lost. And then I come back to I, and I see the light go on. They're like, oh, that makes sense because now they understand what was going on there. And when they understand it by themselves, they don't forget about it. So when a student call me and like, I don't understand why it's not working, then I'm going to tease them. I'm going to first try to figure out what's wrong. And when I find the issue, and if I see it's an issue that is very obvious, I'm going to tease them a little bit. Like, are you sure you don't see it? What happens if you do this, if you do that? Because if I pray, you call that in English, when you hit for people first and spew in their mouth, it's a better analogy, it's in German. But basically, when a mommy bird is eating the worm and spew it in the mouth of the little bird, he's not going to learn to catch a bird himself. So I believe that when you find the solution by yourself, you're going to remember it.
Now, before we finish talking about the classroom, you had asked me to remind you to talk about the evolution of the industry as it relates to what you do in the classroom.
Yeah, the evolution of the industry is very interesting. When I started at Naughty Dog, I was employee 68, 67, something like that. There was only 2 women in production, right? And the studio did evolve over the year up to 300 people. I don't know the percentage of women that we have right now, but we have a very welcoming studio. We have a lot of people that are LGBTQ. We have women, we have guys, we have everything in between. And it's working. And the industry did really change over the year. And I see it in the classroom. I have more and more women in my class. As a matter of fact, I think right now in the current class, I might have more women than guys right now. It depends of the semester. But I can see a change, a change in attitude and change of the way people treat each other, which is for the best. So I think it's very important to open the eyes for young girls that think, oh, a tech job is not for me. It's that specific company that don't treat you well is not for you. But there's enough studio, there's enough people in the industry world that are open-minded. And I don't look at people with their gender. I'm like, it's an artist, right? It's a co-worker, somebody I work with. So, and I think it's important to talk about that.
That's really great to hear, because I mean, it's not like there's no problems out there, but I think typically the only press that really gets advertised to the public is the bad press, right?
This is
You're not
correct.
reading a newspaper article saying, "Hey, it was a really great day at this studio and everybody was treated nicely."
It's
So
true. I also believe it's very important as a student to remember that whatever you put online, you might take a take on that specific issue on Twitter, and it might come and bite you down in about 3 years down the line.
sure,
So I always recommend to people to be the change they want to see in real life. Be nice to
yes,
each other in real
absolutely,
life. So
awesome. All right, well, we're gonna use our remaining 15, 20 minutes to jump into the chat, and I have some questions that my colleague who's been monitoring our chat has sent through to me for you, Christophe. And let's see here. Okay, first question. Can an architect work in the gaming industry as a 3D artist? Is that a skill set that can translate?
oh no, no, architect, we tell them you cannot walk. We say no. No, I'm joking. Obviously, an architect. Guess what? I was a firefighter and I was a soldier, and I'm
Mhm.
working in the 3D industry, and I'm self-taught. Meaning, an architect that go to school at Gnomon, why would he not work in the 3D industry?
Mhm.
Right now, I have people in my class. They used to be a barista at Starbucks. I might even dare to say that the architect probably have a better basis to become a 3D artist than somebody that works
Absolutely.
at Starbucks. I
Yeah.
think we need to remove that notion of age. I have a student, he must be 42. I think my youngest student right now must be 18, and the oldest one in my class is 42 right now. And
Mhm.
it's not an age thing, it's not a background thing. It's like, do you want it? Can you do it?
Totally. Yeah. And I get that. It's another question I get all the time. Am I too old to get started? Or how old is too old? Or can I switch from this to that? It's like, if you want it, there are ways to go after it. And I totally agree. I think if you're working as an architect, especially if you're in CAD related things, are you working in something like Fusion 360, or if you're doing architectural visualization, you're talking about rendering now. So there's a lot of adjacent skills that might help you out a lot at Gnomon.
I think we have an architect right now. I mean, somebody that used to be an architect that is a lighter. I might be leaning a bit too much of the window, but I think one of our lighter used to be trained as an architect.
Yeah. All right, next question is, what would be the most important thing an environment artist should know or be best at? And maybe it's hard to narrow it down to just one, but what do you think are some of the really important factors?
Do you mind repeating the question? I just got some
Of
echo.
course. What would be the most important thing for an environment artist to know or be best at?
Composition.
Hmm.
It's not about building a props. It's about putting those props together into something that look interesting. It
Yeah.
has to do with composition, visual composition, but also gameplay composition, right? How do you place your object in the world to make it interesting? I mean, generally, an environment artist work closer with the game designer. That's the way we do it at Naughty Dog. And there's a block mesh. Game designer give you a block mesh that represents roughly what you want, and then you go in and you do your pass. The art director gives you succinct input, not too much, because we trust our environment artists. So basically, you're kind of the junior art director of your level. That's why you need a good eye for composition.
Hmm. Oh, I like that analogy. That's really good. Next question is, what are the main types of software you should know in the area that you work in? Things like Substance Painter, Substance Designer, Photoshop, and so forth. What do you find that you're using the most?
Me, my software of predilection are Maya, ZBrush, Substance Painter, Redshift
Yep.
V-Ray. At work, I had a little bit of Houdini. I don't really have time to learn, but I'm pushing my team to learn it. Now, what else would I add? If you like to sculpt, but you don't like fighting with ZBrush, maybe Mudbox because it's still a good sculpting tool. I might say if people use Blender, we see some portfolios sometimes with people that use Blender, and we look at it, and if the work is good, we're like, if they know Blender, they will learn Maya. It's not a problem. It's not
Mhm.
about software. It's about pipeline and way of doing stuff. But
Absolutely.
for an environment artist that do texture, definitively Substance Designer, there's no way around it. The same way ZBrush is a de facto industry standard for sculpting. Substance Designer is the de facto industry standard for tangible texture. Substance Painter is the de facto industry standard for one-to-one texture.
Hmm. Yeah, and then I think, but I know that you would agree, Christoph, but I think in addition to the software is not going to teach you. If you want to be a character artist and you're sculpting characters in ZBrush, you can learn how to use ZBrush, but you still need to fuel that with art principles like anatomy, proportion, all that kind of stuff. So, and then you even said it earlier on the stream, is that you're never going to stop needing to learn new things in software.
I
So there's
know
no like one size fits all.
I know less today than I did. I know more today than I did yesterday, and less than I will do tomorrow. When it
Hmm.
comes to ZBrush and Painter, it's also something I mentioned to my student. I'm like, I'm going to show you the way I use Substance Painter. If you ask three people that teach Substance Painter the same question, you are going to get three different answers.
Hmm.
If you ask two people that use ZBrush the same question, you're going to get 20 different answers because there's so many
Yes.
ways to do stuff
Oh
differently.
yes. Yeah, it's a tool. It'd be like asking an artist who draws with a pencil, like, show me the one way to use a pencil that will make me the best artist ever. There's so many different ways. The next question we have is, let's see here. Just a very, very simple question. What does an art director do,
The art
essentially?
director gives direction. At Naughty Dog, the art director is going to go over you a little bit. Like I said, the environment artist, there's two environment artists. There's the modeler that does the layout, and there's a texture artist. So both of them are going to have a meeting with the art director. And both of them are basically the junior art director. They define the look of the level, they look at it from the macro level. The art
Hmm.
director look at it from the highest level and be like, he's not going to tell him this can of soda should be placed there, but he's going to tell them, oh, the big tree over there, move it more there. Basically, do the composition on a broader scale.
Yeah,
And that's for
absolutely.
the environment art director. There's a character art director that is going to define what the character look down to the wrinkle by the eyes. But that's because characters are more scrutinized.
Hmm. Next question is, has the pandemic greatly affected your studio? Um, and was your personal work affected by the pandemic in any way?
Yes. Let's see. When was that? April last year, something like that. I don't remember. We were still not done with The Last of Us 2 before we released it, and we all went home a month and a half before release, which was very tough.
Oh my goodness.
The IT department did manage to get everybody at home in less than 4 days, I think. So now some of us are back at the office. I am back at the office because I believe in working from the office more than from home because I'm very obsessed with work. And if I have my work device at home, I'm never going to stop working.
Mm.
So the studio got affected. Yes, we are working a bit slower in some instance, but all in all, we are still steadily going forward.
Hmm.
And on my
Yeah, and
personal work,
just
I would say, yeah, I guess I did a little bit more. I must have done a bit more over time.
mhm. Yeah, and all the different friends and our Gnomon instructors that I know in the games industry, I think that was one of the industries that pivoted quite quickly when the pandemic hit because everybody wanted to play games at home, so you couldn't. The
Yes.
need for production increased. In fact,
What did
um,
change for me on the teaching side though is
mhm,
I did not really enjoy the working from home. I am in the classroom right now. I went back to the classroom. I like to be telling the student, oh, let me sit down and let me show you if something is wrong. I like to be able to debug the scene in real time, which the
yeah,
work from home is a bit tougher, but all in all, it's working.
yeah, it's been wonderful with the start of the fall term at Gnomon. We were able to get our full-time program fully back on campus, and what a difference! just
Yes.
being back.
It is important because I realized, something that did put a tear almost in my eyes, because I'm a grown man, I'm not supposed to cry. Is the first day I was back at the campus, I got over 25 students that come to say hi. Students I did have through the class online. They
Yeah.
just wanted to see me and say hi and say thank you. And it did really touch me.
Hmm. Yeah, no, I remember our first day back and then the subsequent week being back on campus. Any instructor that was out walking between labs or out in the common areas usually had about at least 4 or 5 students gathered around them, and it was like these people that you couldn't get physically in the same space with. Now suddenly they can speak to them face to
And I
face.
also
And
build a relationship with my student in the sense
mhm.
that I encourage my student to not be stranger. It's not because my class is done that you cannot stop like 3 months, 4 months, sometimes a year later and show me your stuff and be like, hey, I need some advice.
Yeah. Next question we have here is, how do you feel about stylized versus realistic art? Do you think it is important to focus on learning a specific art style to work at a place like Naughty Dog?
I will say, okay, how I feel. If you look at my art station, you're going to realize I do mostly stylized stuff. That's one.
Hmm.
That's what I like. Two, I would say tailor your portfolio to the type of art that the studio that you're going to apply is doing. Basically, if you apply at Naughty Dog, as an environment artist, then just look at The Last of Us 2 and do a bunch of environment like that. People that get a good shot is generally people that take something that exists, the Last of Us style, and transpose it into an environment that we have never done. Somebody did a Chinese garden, what was that? A Chinese village, completely overgrown. It was great.
Ooh,
something new.
very cool.
It's also what I tell my students with their final piece. I want to see multi-layer storytelling. I want to see stuff. I look at the picture and I'm like, oh, it's nice. And I want to look again and be like, oh, I discovered something. Oh, they wanted to tell me something. Oh, there's something more.
Yeah. Especially with an environment, to have those layers of noticing new things each time. Yeah. Let's see. In video games, big stuff like spaceships, planets. Okay. So some of these really large models, the viewers wanting to know how many UDIMs the models typically have.
We do not use UDIM in the game industry. We use stylable texture. I mean, at least at Naughty Dog, we do not use UDIM. I don't know about the studio, but UDIM is a tech that is reserved for offline rendering. We do not use UDIM in real time. We use a lot of texture, and our character, I think, are like 4K texture sometimes, but we do not use UDIM.
And then next question, let's see. Okay, are all of the models you're showing us on your ArtStation, are they all original models?
Most of them. I saw that question. Yes, most of those that are mine. Sometimes I do collaboration with other artists. Example, if you want to bring the ArtStation back, example, that one here, that's a collaboration. Somebody sent me a model. Let's see, those one are also collaboration. I did rebuild them completely, but I got something to start with. But yes, most of the models are mine, except those ones, they are from Zombicide, a board game. It's a board game miniature that the company sent me to do some rendering for their Kickstarter. But most of the model I do myself. Like to model a car like that, take me maybe a week of modeling if I have good reference. And a character like that take me roughly like 2 evenings maybe. Marvelous designer for cloth. By the way, if you're like me and you don't like sculpting cloth, Marvelous designer is always a good start.
Do you do most of your character sculpting in ZBrush, or do you use an alternative software? Okay.
No, I use ZBrush. I used to be more on the Mudbox side. I did like it for the simplicity of the interface, but I like ZBrush for the power. I did try a bit of Blender sculpting. It's fun, but I'm like, nah, it's not industry ready right now.
I think when you have access to ZBrush, use ZBrush. I think there's a lot of artists that are just starting to learn about sculpting using Blender, and that's awesome, especially because it's a free tool. Have you messed around with any of the dynamic simulation in ZBrush to get some of your cloth?
Yes, a little bit. I still, but because I'm a bit more technical, I like to do something quick in Marvelous, take it in ZBrush and sculpt on top, but at least establish the basis very quickly.
Yeah. All right, and we've just got a couple more questions to go here, and we're almost at time, so good timing here.
I think we can go a little bit over time if you need to.
Okay. All right, let's see here. Okay, so here's a question about environments. For creating a large environment scene, what do you think is the best way to approach it? And they said that they find themselves overwhelmed by all of the things that they have to address in an environment.
Okay, I get it. The key is when you do the big environment scene, I'm going to talk about The Last of Us 2, right? Is you need to decompose into little pieces. If you think the way we work, at least again, I'm talking for Naughty Dog, right? I've not worked in another studio for the last 15 years, is we have to manage memory. Basically an asset, let's say this is a plant. It's going to use memory. If I create another plant, it's going to use more memory. But if I duplicate the plant, now it's an instance, it's going to use only 10% of the original memory. So work with a lot of instance. It's not because you create one plant that now all your plant will look the same. You create one plant, you duplicate, you put a joint, you tilt it a little bit, make it a bit bigger, you deform it with the lattice box or whatever you want to do. And that's a way to do it. It's basically to reuse. We have a process what we call prototyping, which we decompose a level into individual assets, and those assets get placed in the level, duplicates, change. Just be creative.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's the amazing thing when I look at working in Maya. I work more in ZBrush than I do in Maya or Blender, but this idea of being able to create instances and then randomize them, and how fast that can become for objects that are similar to each other. All right, next question is, you had mentioned that your curriculum is always changing because things are evolving. What technologies, let's see, just deciphering the question really quick. Oh, okay, so they want to know, are there any technologies or the way things they're evolving now that you're excited about on the horizon?
I am looking very deeply into Adobe. I was going to say Substance, but actually it's Adobe now. They have a tool in beta right now called Modeler. That's a sculpting tool, which is very interesting.
Yeah, interesting.
I know that Substance Painter is evolving even more over the next year. Basically, we are not going to see a leapfrog. It's not like tomorrow a tool is going to come that is going to do everything. It's going to be a slow process. There's always a new way of doing stuff. For example, in Substance Painter last week or 2 weeks ago, they did bring a wrap deformer. If I did have a very, very rigid curriculum, when do I talk about the wrap deformer, right? Redshift is bringing new feature. They changed the way they do the optimization of the render time. How do I talk about it if I have a very, very rigid curriculum? That's what happened with some schools that have an online video, right? And I know that people are still working with video they created 3 years ago, and I'm like, oh, is that possible? Oh, is that possible? It's like it's changing so much. And remember, I change as a person. I learn new stuff. Sometimes students ask me a question. I don't have the answer. I go fetch the answer for them because I need to find the answer. And now I learn something new. Like, oh, that's a good way of doing that. Let's do it. So
absolutely. All right. Next question is, so you say an artist is building a portfolio because they want to apply to be an environment artist. They wanted to know what do you feel would be some key points for them to focus on in their portfolio?
For an environment artist is to display individual assets and 10 environments, put them in a composition, basically composition. And we don't really care if you do your stuff in Unreal. Nobody cares because we don't use Unreal anyway. I've seen people portfolio where the environment was done in low poly model, obviously, because it's a game with tileable texture, still okay, and then rendered in V-Ray, which is good. We don't expect people to be lighter if they are environment artists. We expect them to be a build environment.
Awesome. All right. And
but
then
companies, right? If you want to apply on a Star Wars movie, show them fucking Star Wars spaceships. That's what they will want to see.
Yeah, figure out what the design language is of the studio or the project that you want to work on. Absolutely. Let's see here. Last couple of questions. Do you have any advice on how to find a balance between creating a portfolio that is too broad and too narrow in its specializations? Okay, and then they provide an example. Would someone who has primarily characters in their portfolio and only a few environments be able to apply for environment position? So kind
they
of
should be able to, because if their character portfolio is good, right? Then we already know they are good artists. Then they don't need to have 26 different environments. If they have, let's say, 5 very good characters, we're like, holy cow, that's really good. And then the environment, they have 2 environments, a couple of shots. Because remember, when you have an environment portfolio, I don't need to fly through. I need multiple screenshots from different areas of your portfolio. That's what people don't do. Sometimes they give me one screenshot. I'm like, what am I looking at? Show me different camera angle, because an environment is hard to do. It's not like a final render. You can cheat it, right? You put the camera and you don't build the back of your character. Nobody cares. An environment expected to walk through the environment. Show me multiple angles, or you resolve some issue.
Yeah, I love your analogy earlier of treating it like a photographer.
Yes.
You spend that much time making something awesome. Go be a tourist in your environment and take pictures from different angles. Yeah. Let's see. And then last question here. How does Naughty Dog approach terrain? Is it hand sculpted within Maya?
It depends. Terrain could be hand sculpted in Maya, could be hand sculpted in ZBrush and decimated. Terrain is something that we do not prototype, in the sense we don't duplicate it, right? Except if we have a way of being like, oh, that piece, that dirt patch that is 100 meter by 100 meter, if I take it and I redden it a little bit, and then I scale it a little bit up, now I get a completely different look. It depends from artist to artist. So we are Maya centric, but some people will do that in ZBrush, some people will do that in Houdini. As long as it goes to Maya, it's good.
Well, Christophe, thank you so much for giving us your time today. I think this is also just going to be an awesome resource. I can tell that you enjoy teaching because you've been in teaching mode the whole time in our conversation today. I think there's a lot of knowledge that we can glean from, and especially thanks from our viewers for addressing their questions. As we go, is there any sort of maybe a final advice or something that you wish someone had told you earlier on in your career that you want to share with aspiring artists?
I will give you two. One is stay hungry. Don't don't feel like because you have a position now that you can slow down. It's a bad advice because I'm a workaholic, but I see too many people slow down, just settle down into their role, and for some reason the studio close or whatever, and then they're on the street and they're like, "What do I do now?" One, because they don't have a portfolio. Remember, if you work at Naughty Dog and Naughty Dog closed today, I cannot show you anything of what I've been working or what is coming out soon. So I can't. Then I can only show you my art station. Right? That's one. Twice, it's coming from an old dude. Take care of your head. Don't drink Red Bull. Don't smoke. I see too many young people smoking again. It's a terrible habit. It's look bad. When you start a company, smokers are generally not well seen because, oh, how many smoking break do you take through the day? Because I'm working and you smoke. Interesting. So, but on top of that, it's bad for your health. Don't smoke. Don't drink Red Bull.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. It's been really, really cool getting to talk with you. And I look forward to seeing you on campus.
I would like to invite people, if they have more questions that they could not get answered, they can find me on Twitter, they can find me on Facebook.
Yeah.
Actually, here's my Twitter. And they can send me a message, and if I can give them more advice, they are very welcome to try. So
excellent.
Yeah, that's where I am. What's my Twitter actually? My Twitter is @CDES. Simple.
Awesome. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. So yeah, guys, you should definitely take Christophe up on his invitation if you have more questions. I can't stress that enough. Just about every artist I've met out there working professionally is so generous with their time when they have it to provide answers, and Christophe, of course, is no exception. So everybody, be sure to give your love in the chat and your thanks to Christophe for his time with us today. And I look forward to seeing you again soon, sir.
I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Yeah, farewell to you. Have a good rest of your day. And guys, as we are finishing up with Christophe, I wanted to take about 15-20 minutes with you at the end of this stream for anyone who is interested in Gnomon. If you want to hear about the way that Gnomon is training artists for these types of careers, the kind of careers that are out there in games and film, I am going to put my screen share up, and we're going to take a quick look at that together. So here we go. Excellent. Cool. So Gnomon, as I mentioned earlier at the top of the stream, essentially is a 3D art school located in Hollywood. We are a highly focused school. We focus on just one thing, and that is preparing artists for careers in the production pipeline in games, animation, and visual effects. So we started back in 1997. Our founder, Alex Alvarez, is a creature artist and also has worked in environments and things like that. And he started Gnomon as a place where industry artists could come and learn how to create 3D animation and so forth for the industry. In 1997, all of this was still relatively new. Films like Jurassic Park had shown us that realistic CG is possible in film, and then suddenly the demand for those kinds of things in film production increased, but there was a shortage of artists that could do it. So Gnomon helped to provide the answer to that need, and because of that, we blew up rather quickly into being a full-blown college. So we've won some great awards over the years, including ranking #1 worldwide in the Rookies. That's a competition that all the top schools, similar to Gnomon, compete in every year. We've also won some great academic awards from our creditors as a college in regards to also our graduates paying off their loans quickly and so forth. So I'm saying all of this to you just to paint the picture that we've been around for about 25 years now. We're very good at what we do. But the best proof of that is what our graduates are doing. So this is just a small sampling of projects that you're probably familiar with, that Gnomon alumni have contributed to. And then these are some of the studios out there. There's well over 800 studios in the Los Angeles area alone, but these are some of the names that you might recognize who are regularly hiring Gnomon graduates. In fact, our placement team, our career services team at Gnomon, brings upwards of 50 studios from the Los Angeles area just to the Gnomon campus 4 times a year to look at Gnomon student work. So instead of our students, as they're finishing up their final term at Gnomon, instead of them having to go to some kind of big job fair or something and get in line at the DreamWorks table, and then they'll get in line at the Disney table and get in line at that table and wait to talk to recruiters. At Gnomon, they get to set up in our digital labs at one of our workstations and show off their work as all of the studios come through to them and look at their work. And because of those kinds of services, we can say, we're very proud of the fact that, even in 2020, during the pandemic, 94% of our graduates from our full-time program found a job in studio doing what they trained to do at Gnomon within just 6 months of finishing the program. In the previous year, 97%. In 2018, even 100%. And we've always maintained a placement rate in the high 90th percentile. And that's pretty amazing, and really is the entire purpose of being a school, of providing a degree, is for the purpose of artists getting work and starting their careers. So moving forward, what are all of these artists, all these graduates, what is it that they're actually learning? What is Gnomon's specialization? One term that is inclusive of all of it is digital production. Now, that's an industry term that includes skill sets like creating computer-based visual effects, character and creature design, digital sculpting, character and creature animation, environment design, lighting and rendering, matte painting and compositing, creating assets for games, working with game engines, production workflows, and world building. Now, some of those skill sets you may be familiar with. Some of them might be new terms for you, but every one of these skills translates into the following careers. If you heard Christophe speaking earlier in the stream, he was talking about how, being a character artist in games is not the only job. In fact, there's a vast majority of jobs that are beyond that in other areas. And here you can see a lot of the different positions that are out there. And every one of these titles is a career path unto itself. You could make your entire career as a technical artist like Christophe has, or as a pre-visualization artist, or as a hard surface modeler, a character artist. So what I want to do really quickly is highlight just 4 of these. That's about all we have time for right now. But each one of these have been picked because they're all very different from the latter. And I want to show you some examples of the types of careers that we're training artists for. So the first is character artist. And this artist does exactly what the name implies. They're creating the final 3D character or creature that is going to be on screen in a film, if it's a CG character or creature, or is what is going to be interacted with in a game. This artist using a piece of software called ZBrush, which basically lets you use traditional clay sculpting techniques, but with 3D digital clay. So it's a really intuitive way of making 3D models of things that are organic in shape, whether it's a character, a creature, something you might find in nature, rock formations, etc. This is also, these artists are typically people that are spending time drawing characters and creatures. You can see the concept sketch that this artist, I think they actually made themselves up in the corner there. This is actually from a Gnomon workshop with concept artist Jared Morantz, who is a brilliant creature designer and character designer. So this is great for artists that like drawing characters and creatures and want to actually make that final thing that is going to get to the audience in the production. Next up are effects artists. And I like to sort of affectionately say that these are the artists that get to blow stuff up all day in front of their computers. They are creating stunning sequences like we're seeing here from the film Gravity. And, these are incredibly complex forms of 3D animation. And because you couldn't go in and, hand animate like you would for a character, every little speck and piece of, geometry that's blowing up and in this destruction, you need to actually use special software that creates, real world physics simulations that then get all of these pieces to move in a way that looks realistic. It looks like it's happening in a real environment under particular laws of physics. So they're simulating stuff like fire, smoke, debris, explosions. How does a particular material break up as it explodes? What does a space station that's, in 0G look like when it gets hit by a piece of space debris? They are solving all those problems. And I like to say that these are the guys that if, every position in the pipeline was a character in a Dungeons and Dragons campaign, these are probably going to be your wizards and sorcerers. Next up are compositors. Now, the compositors are almost at the very end of the production pipeline, and that's because they're the artist that doesn't necessarily make all of these different pieces that you see putting together into the scene, but they're the ones that receive it from the other artists in the pipeline, and they weave kind of the final thing together. So here you can see the tennis courts and backgrounds are 3D models. The tennis players are actors that were shot in front of green screens. The buildings and props in the foreground are 3D models with texturing and lighting, and additional actors are inserted. A final lighting pass is done, and you wind up with a scene like this. This is an establishing shot for a location from the film Wolf of Wall Street. And these kinds of shots are really important for film and television because it's the director's way of letting the audience know this is the location, this is where this part of the story is taking place. And instead of the director having to spend all of the time and money necessary to find a real world location, get the actors out there, get permits to film there and so forth, they can now go to a VFX studio and say, hey, these are the scenes we need. Let's get all the artists making all the different pieces, but we need a really great compositor to weave it all together at the end of the process so that the audience is fully immersed in what's happening. And that's what a compositor does. The last example that I'd like to share are previs artists. Now, previs artists are 3D animators, but they're working with more simplified models and simplified forms of animation. And that is because they're not, going to spend months and months just working on one little slice of the story, getting everything pixel perfect and so forth. What they get to do is make a moving storyboard of the entire film. And this is really important because as films have become more complex, as they have elements that are, filmed on a real location, mixed with visual effects and mixed with CG, you need to be able to get the idea across to all those different moving parts in the process. So what happens is the director gets to work very closely with a pre-visualization artist. That artist gets to hear the vision of the director for each of the scenes, and they get to take models and animate them and animate the camera, determine what kind of lens is going to be on that camera, and they essentially make a sketch of the film, the entire film, before the rest of the production takes place. So this is great for people that want to work in 3D, they want to animate, but they really like the idea of getting the big picture across and working very closely with the director and the cinematographer. Okay, so with some of those different types of careers in mind, let's talk about Gnomon's specific programs. How are we training artists for those roles? So here's a bird's eye perspective of all of Gnomon's academic offerings. The top two are our full-time programs. We offer a 4-year Bachelor of Fine Arts degree in digital production. And we also have something called a certificate program, which is a more advanced and more intensive program that is typically used by students who may already have a degree from another school, but want to come to Gnomon to really hone in those very specific digital production skills to get ready to go into studio and start working. The bottom row are a couple of really great options. One of them is our Foundation in Art Design, which is a course that helps you build a portfolio that you would use to apply to one of our full-time programs. And then also we have a ton of individual courses for adult students. And both the foundation and these individual courses are not something that you have to send in a portfolio application to enroll in. And the individual courses at Gnomon are something you can just simply sign up for through our website online. And we've got a ton of different options there for you. So speaking of the Bachelor of Fine Arts degree, it's important to know that this is a fully accredited college degree program, which allows for a lot of the usual suspects in terms of financial aid that you'd be applying for to help you pay for your education. It is full-time. It is on the Gnomon campus in Hollywood, and it has 2 optional concentrations. So in this program, in both of our full-time programs, what we do is we help our artists build a very broad foundation in digital production and in the pipeline. and then build on that foundation particular areas of concentration depending on the role that they want to work in after graduating. So you are going to learn the entire pipeline. So all of the different titles that I put up on the screen earlier, you're going to learn how to do each of those steps in the pipeline. And then on top of that, you can either choose from one of our 2 concentrations in either game art, which is going to teach you how to do the pipeline in game engines like Unreal Engine, or you can choose a VFX concentration, which gives you more VFX centric classes as a part of your degree. Those are classes that would previously only be available in our more advanced 2-year program, brings them in for you while you're in the Bachelor of Fine Arts degree program. If you don't have to pick a concentration, because you also have available to you, if you're not wanting to go into game art or visual effects, you also get to pick out 4 electives in your final 4 terms in the program. Why is all of this put more towards the end? Because we want you to be exposed to the entire pipeline so that you can really be experientially sure of what it is you're really passionate about doing. And then you can build extra skills in that area. The BFA at Gnomon also has a rolling admission, which means you can apply or transfer in from a community college, for example, 4 terms out of the year. So not just the fall, but also the winter, the spring, and the summer. That means that we have graduating classes 4 terms out of the year. And it also gives the option of staying in class, staying in school for the summer term each of the years that you're in the program, which lets you finish the 4-year program in just 3 years. And that's really what most of our students choose to do. Next up, the 2-year certificate program. As I said, this is more advanced, it's more intensive. It's a little bit more akin to like a master's degree level of study. And you are going to still be learning that entire pipeline, and then you're going to get to choose from one of 5 areas of study, of focus on top of that. These would be areas, for instance, like animation or modeling and texturing, lighting, working within visual effects, and so forth. So this is typically, we have students that are coming in that already have an art degree from another school, and they're really wanting to get that hyper-focused digital production training. And so they go after the 2-year program. Often the 2-year program is used by adult students that may be looking to pivot into another career. Maybe you're an architect and you're looking to learn the digital production pipeline. This could possibly be a good option for you as well. So moving forward, our foundation in art and design exists to help prospective students prepare their portfolio. So say you want to go to Gnomon, say you're finishing high school and you want to apply to the 4-year program at Gnomon, but maybe you've not yet had the option to take a lot of foundational art classes. So that's what the foundation in art and design is there for. It helps you learn the skills that you need to build a well-rounded portfolio, an application portfolio to apply to Gnomon. And really also it's a great preparatory course for applying to other art schools as well. These will be classes like figure drawing, anatomy for artists, learning how to draw in perspective, understanding composition and color and light. And then you also get into some really great design classes like character and creature design, vehicles and mechs, environments, and the like. So it's not required that you stay in the foundation for the entire year, but it's really just there for you to get in and get what you need. And if that's something that you're interested in, you can also talk to one of our admissions advisors about how that works, and if that's something that might be a good fit for you before going into something like the Bachelor's of Fine Arts degree at Gnomon. Lastly, I'll just say well over 70 of the classes from our full-time programs are also offered as individual a la carte choice type classes. And every class at Gnomon meets once a week for 3 hours over the course of 10 weeks. So that's an accumulative 30 hours of training. And these are just standalone courses that are going to let you choose from a lot of different subjects. If you want to get a taste of what it's like to be a student at Gnomon while learning a particular skill set, or maybe you don't have time to go into a full-time program. You want to start learning some of these different things that Gnomon is teaching. We even have a lot of industry artists coming in from studio, taking individual classes at Gnomon to continue their professional development. So the last really important piece of information for me to cover with you is the way that admissions works at Gnomon. And it's really important because we do things very, very differently than most other schools. Sort of the typical art school experience is you kind of got to get your portfolio ready. You got to sort of figure out, what are they looking for? What should I have in my portfolio? Get all that together, fill out your application, and then sort of at the end of that process, deliver that to college admissions, and then stand back, cross your fingers, and hope that you get into the program. At Gnomon, we've reversed that process. We want to be able to answer questions for you like, what do you want to see in my portfolio? How does my portfolio look? Are there things you suggest that I might want to learn or brush up, or pieces that I might want to tweak or upgrade that are in my portfolio? What about financial aid? How do I fill out the application to Gnomon? We want to help you with all of those questions before you apply. So if you want to, know what's the best portfolio that I can present to apply to Gnomon, that's what our advisors are here for. So, this is our team of advisors here. Each one of them is an accomplished artist and a really great coach and mentor. And what they would like to do, what they want to be able to do, is to be able to get a conversation going with you where you can show them your artwork, and they can give you areas to work on and help you choose pieces for your portfolio and help you choose your next project that you're going to work on that's going to be a portfolio project. And I've known them to coach prospective students for even up to a year of just going back and forth like this, helping you build up your portfolio before you apply. So speaking with an admissions advisor at Gnomon is not necessarily at the front end. You're not being evaluated as to whether or not you should get into the program. They're there to help you put your best foot forward and prepare yourself before you apply. So if you're interested in that type of portfolio coaching, if you want to be able to speak with an advisor, my colleague Melissa can drop that in the chat for you today. We've got a great link that just takes you a simple form to fill out. We're not going to sell your information or use that to call you at dinner time for the rest of your life trying to sell you something. This is just going to help our advisors know who you are, kind of where you're at, what your interests are, and they're going to reach out to you in the form of an email. I just suggest that you keep an eye on the spam folder in your email server, just in case their email gets sent there. But every person who reaches out to Gnomon in this way receives an email from an advisor to start that conversation. We want to give that opportunity to everyone who's interested in the school. So lastly, I'll just say, as I was discussing with Christophe, the Gnomon campus is fully open as of this fall term, which we are in the middle of. We're very, very happy to have all of our full-time students back on campus, all of our digital labs open. We've got our library open, our green screen stage, you name it, sculpture lab, everything's up and running. And if you're interested in getting a tour of campus, we are offering limited tours. Those currently are available on Thursdays at noon. And you can go to the Gnomon website to get to the portal to book a tour, or you can also talk to an admissions advisor about getting a tour of campus. But we want to give you the opportunity to come out and see it for yourself. But we also want to invite you into some of the events that we do. We are doing a lot of live stream content, just like today's stream. Some of those include a really awesome art jam that Josh Herman, our Chief Creative Officer, and Gnomon's founder, Alex Alvarez, have been doing together in ZBrush, in Maya, creating scenes and environments within Unreal Engine, which has been great. We recently started 2 new live stream shows, which we have a show focused on characters with Josh Herman called Archetype. And Josh is going through and modeling in ZBrush 12 different archetypal characters and talking about character design and digital sculpting and so forth. We also have another fantastic stream on Tuesday evenings called Creature Corner. And that is hosted by Gnomon's own instructor, Jared Kraszewski. Jared is an accomplished concept artist, a character and creature designer who works primarily in ZBrush. And he's also joined by Gnomon alum Matt Millard. And you'll laugh, you'll cry. It's one of the funniest and most informative moments you can find in live streaming today. So if you have interest in these areas, definitely follow us on social media so you can find out when we're streaming. As we get campus up and running and we are able to get live events going again, we're going to start hosting some fantastic events on campus. Here's some examples of events we've done in the past. Every event, gallery show, gallery opening on the Gnomon campus is free to the public. So definitely check that stuff out as it's coming up on social media, on our website. Register to attend. We'd love to see you there. So with that, guys, I just want to say thank you for taking the time, first and foremost, to hear from Christophe today. And for those of you who have stuck around to listen to this informational session, it's been my pleasure to help. We want to hear from you, and we don't want you to have to try to figure out the answers to your questions about Gnomon alone. We want to help you. We want to coach you. So please do reach out, and we'll see you again soon on one of our live streams here on the Gnomon channel. So thanks. I'm Adam Hartel. Stay safe, stay creative, everybody, and we'll see you soon. Bye-bye.